Welcome, everyone, to a very, very special episode of our podcast today. My name is Rob Jacomen. I'm with WSMT Insurance, and I'm extremely proud and honored because we have a very special guest. And I've been wanting to do this interview for a very long time, and now we have an opportunity. And we're extremely honored to be joined today by Jim Ries, who is the Director of Business Development for Offit Kurman, and someone who I have developed a relationship on LinkedIn, and that's really the beauty of LinkedIn is we can make connections with people who may be so distant from each other that we can be brought together and start to build a relationship. And Jim and I have done that, and also one of the reasons why we've developed a relationship, but one of the reasons why I asked Jim to be on our show is really because I see Jim doing so many other things for so many other people selflessly, and he does so much for the Maryland business community. He really doesn't need much of an introduction because most of you already know who he is, because he's truly epitomizes the essence of a trusted advisor and somebody who's a real people connector in the business community. So I'm extremely honored and blessed to invite Jim on the show, and I know, Jim, that you wear many hats in Offit Kurman, and I know that that's something that is a sort of a running joke around town, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
That's right, Rob. I do wear many hats, but this is the main hat that I wear that people recognize me by. Thank you for the kind introduction. It really is a pleasure to join you for your podcast.
Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
I really appreciate it, Jim. And you have such a you and I talked offline, and in preparation for the time that we have together today, and you have such a compelling story. And I thought to myself, again, as I go back to, you do so much for the business community here in Maryland. I really feel like people need to get to know you and hear your story and get to know how you got your start and how you've been able to be so successful at what you do that people want to tap into that knowledge. People want to know who you are and hear a truly an awesome story. And I think you have one. And with that, let's dive right in. You started off, you didn't always do what you're doing right now. You actually started off in a family run business, and maybe some people don't even know that about you, but I thought it was really awesome for you to share your experience and how that kind of prepared you for what you're doing today.
Hey, thank you, Rob. I appreciate the opportunity. You're right. Most people are not aware of my past. They are much aware of my present. So my working career as a young adult began 1 week after I graduated from college when I started working for my family's business. The business was run by my dad at the time. The name of the business was D. Myers and Sons. And the nature of the business was we were wholesalers and distributors of women's footwear. At the time when I started there, women's footwear was made in domestic factories in New England. And then sometime in the mid to late 80s, those factories closed down and seemed like overnight we became importers and distributors of women's footwear. And I was making trips to Taiwan and Brazil and Spain and Italy. And then several years later, the manufacturing moved over to China, where China had a tremendous amount of labor and the Taiwanese had a tremendous amount of technology. They joint ventured, and the rest is history, as they say. So the business was terrific. We grew really nicely, and during the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, we just determined that it was in the best interest of us and everybody else in the company to go through an orderly wind down and close up the business. So we closed in August of 2009 after 99 years in business.
Wow.
I was blessed because I got to work with my dad for 31 years, and that was really something special. We still have that special relationship today.
That's amazing.
Um, yeah, it was, it was tough. It was a tough decision to make, and it was a very difficult transition. But that's when my networking really started.
Yeah.
So as a matter of survival, after our company closed, I knew I had to find my next career, and so I got myself out there and met centers of influence and asked people for introductions, and it just sort of grew like a family tree and snowballed. And I all of a sudden found myself with this very significant network of individuals in the Central Maryland area who I would consider centers of influence.
Yep. That's such an amazing story how you were able to, pivot going through a very difficult time like that and then having to kind of change your entire approach. I mean, obviously the challenges that you went through and having to shut down a business that, my goodness, being in business for 99 years. But again, times have changed. The economy changes. So through all that struggle, you basically learned how to adapt and to, basically build your network and really rely on people to help support you and your goals and what you're trying to achieve. So how did you make that transition from, I guess you ran the company for, about 10 years. So you must have had a pretty, at least an established base of really high quality relationships up and down the East Coast. Um, but how did you make that transition? Well, like what was the next step for you? Because that's a really interesting, how do you make that move?
Yeah, well, great question. And back then, weren't using the word pivot like they're using today. So what people would generally say about me is that I reinvented myself.
Yep.
So today they would call that a pivot. And I did reinvent myself because after spending a couple of years looking for a family business to buy or invest in or to work in, the doors were pretty much closed because there just weren't any good opportunities for me. So I worked for another company that was in the uh, small parcel shipping business and worked for them for a couple of years. And then I worked for a moving company for just less than a year. And each step of the way in career transition, I met more and more centers of influence. You asked me about my network back in the shoe days. Well, my network back in the shoe days was the people, the customers, and the vendors and the factories that were all over the world. Certainly, the customers were in the U.S., everywhere in the U.S., and the manufacturers were all outside of the U.S. So that was a network that with nobody in the Maryland area. And that network was grown when I went to trade shows back then. The biggest trade shows were in Las Vegas, but there were also trips to New York and Chicago and Miami and Atlanta and Charlotte and all over the country, Dallas. So that's where my networking was done, which at the end of that career really wasn't going to help me very much. I needed a network right here in Central Maryland.
Yeah.
So as I was in career transition, that's where I built my network. That's where I learned how to touch people, reach out to people, and that's where I learned my skills.
Yeah. That's really interesting because that's a great there's some great lessons to be learned there. And anyone who's listening and watching right now can really draw on, maybe that touches somebody in a personal way too, because maybe they're going through a challenge right now as we're going through one of the most difficult times I think that I can remember in my professional career and lifetime is I mean, my goodness, now the economy has changed. So you were able to take a lot of your skills and your talents and your gifts and be able to transition them even into another business. So, or even another industry. So that's actually a great lesson. What would be some of the things that you felt were most important for you and helped you make that transition? You talk about networking. People love to do business. Like Zig Ziglar says, people love to do business with people they know, like, and trust. What was your secret to starting that process, basically starting with nothing and building something?
Well, firstly, it's a mindset. So if you're going to be the guy or the woman at a networking event who introduces themselves and says, "Hey, I'm Jim and I'm looking for a new job,"
Mm,
nobody is going to be attracted to you. So it's a mindset. You got to say to yourself, "Hey, look at this great opportunity. I now get to choose a new career for myself." And so you have to adopt a positive mindset. You can curl up in a ball and stay in bed all day, or do like I did, which was, by the way, a fantastic role model for my kids. I got up, I busted my butt. I had meetings, every couple of hours. I had 4, 5, 6 meetings a day. I had business cards made for myself that said, Jim Ries in career transition. I learned how to talk about it in an upbeat way, like, yeah, I'm looking for my next opportunity to kill it in a great industry and really help a new company. And so that was completely mindset.
yeah.
You got to have a positive mindset. I talk to people every week who want to know, what do I do? I just lost my job. And the first thing I tell them is you got to have a positive mindset. And
Yep.
then you got to work harder than everybody else. And you've got to be comfortable asking people for introductions to centers of influence. Who should I meet who can get me closer to my next career opportunity?
Yeah.
And then
And
you got to be out there and you got to be networking. And again, you got to be positive. You can't be Debbie Downer at the networking events when it
that's right.
comes your time for your elevator pitch. You got to be you got to be excited. You got to be energized.
And that's really another great lesson, because that's really what people know you personally as, Jim, is not only are you a people connector, but you're somebody who you don't have selfish motives. When you go into a networking event or networking function, or, let's say you're on LinkedIn, you're always looking to help other people. Is that one of the things that you often recommend the most? Is that's as you're on your journey, as many people as you can help along the way always comes back to you probably tenfold.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of qualities that are really important, but you got to be yourself. You got to be authentic. You got to think about the other person. You don't walk into a networking event thinking about me. It's not about you. It's about everybody else you're going to meet. So you walk into a networking event, and you got to be thinking about who can you have a conversation with and learn about. When someone asks you what you do, then they've given you permission to spew all the information you want to at them. But until they ask you, I'm really not comfortable spewing information at someone until they've asked.
Yeah.
So you got to go into these networking situations with the right mindset. Again, it's about mindset, and the mindset is I want to learn about somebody in this room that I don't already know.
Yep. And I think that, as when you and I were talking, I think that's really been such an area of growth and success for you, and how you were able to even transition to where you are today, is just through the networking process and being selfless and wanting to learn, having a genuine interest in other people. um, that's the secret to finding that path for yourself. So that being said, transitioning into where you are today, because obviously you didn't always do what you're doing, but the one thing I do know, Jim, is other people who know you, who I've talked to, have said that that's who you are. Like, that's the kind of person you are, is a true connector and networker. And people want to know what's Jim's secret, and I think one of the things I can pick up is your secret is, number one, being yourself. But also, number two is when you go into an event or you go into a function where maybe you meet somebody on LinkedIn or you IM them on LinkedIn, you don't have a selfish motive. You don't have an ulterior motive. You're like, hey, I just want to reach out to you and start to build a relationship and see where this goes. How can I help you? Maybe you can help me. I don't know. Let's see if there's a good fit here. But every time I've used that approach, it's always been very successful outcome, because you get the opportunity to build relationships. And isn't that what business is all about?
Yes, it's all about building relationships. That's exactly right. By the way, interesting story about how I ended up at Offit Kurman. Um, I was in career transition, and what I had learned or taught myself was any opportunity I had to drip on somebody. So there it was. There was an article in a trade publication, a local publication, about the fastest growing companies in Maryland, and Offit Kurman was one of them. And there were half a dozen others where I knew the owners or someone in the C suite. So I sent emails out, and one of those emails went to Ted Offit, who I had a relationship with. We grew up together,
Mhm.
and I said it was very simple. I think it was 4 sentences, and it said, "Ted, congratulations on being named, one of the fastest growing firms in Maryland. I'm in career transition, looking for an opportunity in management or business development. Who can you introduce me to?" And that
Man,
was it.
what a
And the
great
response
approach.
was his response was, "Hey, great to hear from you. We actually might have a position for you." And so within a couple of weeks, I had interview after interview and started there, was hired there about a month later. That was February of 2013. And the rest is history. So it's been about 7.5 years, and it's been a great ride.
That's awesome. Hey, there's a gold nugget right there, Jim. For anyone who's in a career transition right now, one of the things that I just picked up from Jim is listen, if you can start networking and building relationships where you approach individuals that maybe you have an interest in their, expanding to their network and maybe learning, there's the old adage, it really is true, 6 degrees of separation. When you can talk with like your approach, hey, I just want to reach out to you. Congratulations, when you made that intro, you were, you know, uh, you did it in a way where it's like you were complimentary, and then you didn't have any ulterior motives. It's just to say, hey, listen, here's where I am, here's my story, here's my situation. Who can you introduce me to?
Who do you know?
Who do
That's
you
right.
know?
Yeah.
And that's so that's a great segue and transition into what you're doing today. So maybe tell us a little bit about, obviously, I love the hat joke. It's so true, but in a serious way, your role there at Offit Kurman has really evolved to what it is today. So maybe you want to talk about, you had mentioned you have like 3 primary roles. Do you want to talk about each one of those?
Yeah, sure. Great. I call it the three-legged stool. And so
That's
the
right.
first leg is pretty obvious as a, business development professional. My primary focus is on recruiting new clients to the firm. And I do that by networking 24/7, by dripping on people, touching people, helping people, connecting people. Um, it didn't take me long to realize that I was getting success by being in the right place at the right time.
Mm,
And then I sat down one day and I thought, okay, so um, how can I speed this up? How can I accelerate this? And I thought, wow, this is easy. If I've had success by being in the right place at the right time, if I can be in a lot of places a lot of times, I'll have I'll have a better chance, better probability of bringing in more clients. And
yep.
so that's what I did. So I told my wife, I said, look, for the next couple of years, I'm going to be going at 100 miles an hour. And I'm
Right.
going to be going to a lot of networking events, meeting a lot of people, following up with those people, lots of phone calls, meetings, etc. So just understand that, this is a long game, not a short game.
Yep.
And that has paid off for me. So again, my primary role is recruiting new clients to the firm. My secondary role is recruiting attorneys to the firm. And for example, now it's a a good time for us because out of crisis comes opportunities, and this is an opportunity for Offit Kurman to recruit partner level attorneys with portable books of business. And most people are unaware that there are no non competes in the legal industry.
Mm.
So a partner level attorney with great clients that are in the low to middle market that we cover in our geographic footprint, they could bring their clients to our firm and work under our umbrella. There are lots of reasons why that's a good idea for partner level attorneys who are unhappy where they're currently practicing. But the bottom line is Offit Kurman is a great place for them to practice law and a great landing pad if they're looking to make a move for
Yeah.
many, many reasons that we don't have time to get into.
No, I mean, we
So,
can save it for, maybe we can save that for another time to have you on. But it makes a lot of sense because one of the things I do know about Offit Kurman is you guys do such a great job at your outreach, and that's really competitive and strategic advantage for a partner level attorney who wants to have a steady stream of relationships that they have the opportunity to build with potential clients. I mean, that's a huge advantage is having that, power in that outreach, because it's such an important thing. And I talked to so many trusted advisors about that. Is you really have to do, not only is the networking important, but also building your brand, building your outreach, so people get to know you, get to know your firm, get to know what you stand for. That's such a huge part of it. So, Jim, here's $1 million question. There's another great transition right here. When you're talking about what we call rainmakers in our industry, if a lot of you don't know what a rainmaker is, look it up or Google it. But basically, a rainmaker is somebody who can bring in, who's basically a producer, somebody who can bring in a steady stream of new clients and new relationships to the firm. So, what is one piece of advice or one gold nugget that you could offer maybe a young or mid-level partner attorney who either is just starting off or wants to build their client base? What's one piece of advice that you would give them to become more of a rainmaker?
well, Rob, you're not going to keep me to one piece of advice because that would be impossible, but I will keep it less than 10.
All right.
If you will allow me. So, and
Absolutely.
and I made some notes because I don't want to leave any of these out because I've given a lot of thought to less than 10, but pieces of advice for rainmakers, business developers in a law firm or
Yep.
otherwise. So the first thing I would say is um, as you go about making your connections and meeting people, be interested, not interesting.
Mm.
And what that means is if you're interested, you're asking a lot of questions like you're asking me, and you're curious. If you're interesting, you're doing all the talking. And when you meet someone, you need to be interested, ask a lot of questions, be curious, be client focused. So as an attorney, if you go and you're you go to an event and you're meeting business owners, it has to be about them. The focus has to be about them. So be interested, not interesting. I would say be some of the personal characteristics are be authentic, be human, be vulnerable. And people say vulnerable. What does that mean? Be vulnerable. It means talk about something that may be difficult to talk about.
Yep.
Talk about a family member who's ill, or talk about an issue you're having with one of your kids or one of your siblings. Be human. As professionals, oftentimes we don't show the human side, but that's really important, especially in today. Be
Agree.
memorable. So what's be memorable? I got the hat. People are going to remember, oh, that was that crazy Jim guy with the hat, Jim from Offit Kurman. So be memorable.
Yep.
Be patient. Business development and rainmaking is a marathon, not a sprint. Um, so focus on quality, not quantity. Heard a great quote the other day that networking is about knowing more people, right?
Mhm.
But connecting is about knowing people more. So you have quantity and quality, knowing more people or knowing people more. And my suggestion is go with the quality and try to get to know people more, not get to know more people. Um, as you mentioned before, give to get. You got to give before you can ever expect to get anything in return. It will come, but again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't social distance from social media. There are a
Mm,
lot of professionals out there that just are not comfortable with social media. And in our professional world, if you're a B2B service provider, that social media means LinkedIn. So
yep.
get comfortable with LinkedIn, be consistent, post meaningful and relevant content, be active. Don't just sit back and be a lurker and just click like every now and then. Be
Yeah.
a part of it, be an active participant.
Engagement. Yep.
Yep, engagement. Here's a big one, don't be salesy. You all
Exactly.
know that people love to buy, but people don't like to be sold to. So don't be salesy. If you come out of the gates trying to sell something, they're going to run to the hills. So, when we've all seen it, when you connect with someone on LinkedIn and immediately you get an automated response that's like
Oh,
this long, forget it.
it's
Why
it's
would you buy from that person? You don't even know the first thing about them. And why would they think you would buy from them?
they
You don't
don't
even
know
know
anything
them.
about you. We haven't
Ex-
even
ex-
built a relationship yet. Like,
Exactly.
ask
No,
about me. Like,
right.
if
Remember
you're gonna reach out.
you mentioned they have to like you, know you, like you, and trust you.
Yep.
Well, you're batting zero at that point if you're sending that long response. And then huge, huge, huge. I see it all the time. You got to follow up. If you don't follow up, why are you wasting your time doing all this work?
Yep.
And I can't tell you how often I go into an attorney's office and they got a stack of business cards or a shoebox full of them. What good is it? You
Right.
didn't follow up. Why did you even go to all these events and make these connections if you're not going to follow up? You got to follow up. I can bet you if you aren't, your competition is, and you're going to lose out. You're going to lose those opportunities.
Well, let me
So I
ask you.
think I think I kept that less than 10.
Dude, you did. It was awesome. But I do actually have a follow-up question for you. A lot of times I'll hear this from, trusted advisors. When I talk about trusted advisors, I'm throwing in attorneys in there, bankers, insurance professionals,
CPAs.
CPAs, really anyone who's in that sort of non-traditional sales role. Um, but you still have to have some salesmanship, right? So one of the questions I have is for those who are out there who are like, Jim, I'm introverted. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a natural salesperson. And there's that fear when you talk about follow up, and they're sitting there looking at that looming stack of business cards. Where do they start? What would be the first thing that you would recommend to have them conquer or overcome that fear, that initial fear, that of trepidation, and just make the calls, just make the outreach? What's going to make somebody feel more comfortable in doing that? Because I don't think a lot of us are natural salespeople, that we really have to work at it.
Couple of things, really good point. And I think the fear you're talking about is the fear of rejection.
Mm,
But understand that the sooner you get to know, the faster you move on to the next person. So rejection is not necessarily a bad thing. Um,
And it's not a
I
personal thing. It's
no,
mainly like they're just not interested in what you're offering at that moment, but you don't want to give up. You want to continue offering value to them, and might be, hey, I made this video about XYZ in your industry. I thought you might be interested, and boom, send it to them. Or
yeah,
little things like that. Like, it doesn't mean that you're picking up the phone and you're banging the phones all day. It might mean you're sharing an article, you're sharing a resource, you're being a valuable, trusted advisor, and building that trust and building that relationship over time. Like you said, this is a marathon, not a sprint. But eventually, you're going to get your shot. You're going to get your opportunity, because that person's going to remember, wait a minute, you were never salesy with me. You were always offering value. You were always being helpful. You were always being, what we look at is people want to do business with a trusted advisor, right? And I don't think a lot of the young generation, or even, it doesn't even matter generationally. I think a lot of people with that mindset need to overcome that as a major barrier to their success.
So, a couple things. Number one, I personally believe if you're in the B2B professional service business, you should never need to make a cold call, because
Hmm.
if you want to meet somebody, go to LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn. It's the greatest tool out there. It's the world's largest database you could find,
Yeah.
and find someone who's connected to the person you want to meet and ask them to make a very warm introduction. That's number one. Number two, you got to really believe in the service that you're selling. So I believe that Offit Kurman is the best solution for the people that I contact, for the business owners that I'm in touch with.
Yep.
We're the best solution because we're entrepreneurial, we're progressive, we're really very businesslike. In fact, I call our attorneys business advisors who happen to have a law degree.
Hmm.
I've seen them in action. They give great business advice, and they're trusted advisors for their clients. So when I go in and finally get that appointment and a meeting with the business owner, I love to meet them at their business. I've yet to meet a business owner who didn't want to give me a tour of their business and their facility that they're very proud of.
Yep.
So we
Exactly.
meet there, we get a tour, we end up in the conference room every time, and I believe that I go into these figuring that this business owner, they have they have an attorney. They have an attorney or a law firm similar to Offit Kurman,
Of course.
um, and that's great. But I see opportunity everywhere I go. And I sit down with them. I start asking a lot of questions. I'm very curious. I have my business background. And they usually say, well, how do you even know to ask these questions? Well, it's because of my background. I've been around the block a few times. I know the questions to ask. And I've gone on a tour and I've made some mental notes of some things that I've seen. So generally, when I leave that meeting, that business owner is saying to himself, Jim seems like a nice guy. I wouldn't mind doing business with him. Offit Kerman is really positioned to help me with my legal needs. I'm happy with my attorney now, but if something were to happen down the road, I definitely would give Jim a call because
Yep.
I know he would take care of me. And so if that comes out in conversation, my response to that business owner is, "Hey, that's great. I don't mind being in the on deck circle. I'll be the next guy up, because if something happens, if your attorney does something to upset you, or there's a conflict of interest, or they retire, or they move firms, I want to be the next guy that you call." And so that's how I position myself, and it's worked very well.
Yeah, it's so awesome. We don't want to give all your secrets away, Jim, but let me tell you something. This has been one of the most enlightening, invaluable uh, times that I've spent with someone. And man, there's so much wisdom in everything you're talking about. Is, even if someone listening or watching today, take one or two of these nuggets and just test it out. Try it out because you have nothing to lose. I mean, my goodness, you have everything. What's the worst thing that could happen? You get a new client out of it, right? Or, you get at least an opportunity to be that second person in line when things go south. They pick up the phone and they call you, right? They reach out to you because you've been a resource for them throughout that entire time. I'll leave it with this. The most powerful question I ask, and I always share this with anyone who asks me the question, what do you ask when you open up a conversation when you're sitting down having a meeting with a new prospective client? And I always say something like this because it really gets the ball rolling. If you and I are sitting here in this same spot 3 years from today, and you and I are just having the same conversation, what would have had to happen over the course of those 3 years for you to feel like this was a successful relationship? And then I shut up and I don't say another word. And let me tell you something, it just opens up the floodgates because, it gives that business owner or C-suite individual a chance to really share with you what that looks like for them because it's all about them. It's not about me. I'm not there to sell them something. It's really about them. And I want to learn, how can I solve your problem? How can I be a resource for you? How can I be a true trusted advisor and partner for you. And I think that's the real takeaway, Jim, that I got from you today. And listen, if anyone if you feel like you've gotten some value from this episode today, please consider subscribing. I'm going to share some other resources with you. Obviously, we're going to want to, if folks want to learn more about you, Jim, I'm going to put all the links in the description below. But I always, as we're landing the plane here, I always love to ask this last question because to me, it's the most compelling of all. And you and I talked about this earlier. If you are at the end of your career, let's say you are in retirement, you're standing on top of the mountain, you're looking around of a panoramic view. What impact or what difference do you, or what, how do you want people to remember you by? What kind of impact or difference have you made in the world as you look back in your career?
I want people to think of me as a giver. Jim is a giver, and Jim went the extra mile to help me and just fill in the blank because I'm on call 24/7. I'm there to help people, whatever it might be. If they need an attorney, they need a CPA, they need a landscaper, their teenage child is looking for a job or an internship, whatever it might be. I have a saying that is, "Let Jim be your Google."
I
And
love it.
that's it. I
I
want to be
love it.
your Google. I want you to call me for any need that you might have because I could probably find a solution for you.
Yeah. Jim, I want to just thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's been a pleasure to do this interview with you today. I think we got so much value out of it. And I would absolutely love to do another one with you as even a follow up. But, Jim, as I said, as we're wrapping up, Jim is really someone who I look at as a true professional, true trusted advisor and partner. And obviously somebody who I can learn from. I mean, when you look at mentors, Jim's the kind of guy who you really want to pick his brain because there's a lot of knowledge there that he is so freely and selflessly willing to share. It's really awesome. And it's really awesome to get to know you and even more at a deeper level and, be having us building relationship together. So thank you so much, Jim. How can people, if they want to reach out to you, how can people reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you?
I don't mind at all. I think it's important for me to have my contact information pasted everywhere. So you can get me by email at jries@offitkurman.com. Our website is offitkurman.com. And my cell phone is 410-733-6133. And you can use any of those means to get a hold of me.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate it. As always, we're going to continue offering tremendous value and bringing on other guests and having topics that are, really meaningful and valuable to the business community here in Maryland. And, we're really passionate about it. And I'm extremely grateful, not only for you, but also I'm grateful for the opportunity to share our message and to get this out to the world. Really, we have that opportunity and it's a real blessing. So thank you so much, Jim. And also thank you to everybody. And stay tuned for another episode and the next, hot topic that's going to be on our list. All right.
Thank you,
Take care.
Rob. I
Thanks, Jim.
appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye.
Bye bye.